Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Hit that record button. Let's have some fun over here. Can we spotlight myself, Michael Mathews, and Jill Johnson? We're going to get this pulled up. There's Jill.
Morning.
All right. Good morning, guys. I'm so excited for this call.
Morning. I'm excited for this too. I've been
So
thinking about this all week. I will be fair. I'm like, oh man, it's finally our turn.
it's finally your turn. Guys, this is part 3 out of 4 in our series of mastery. So Jill and Michael have been sitting on the sidelines watching other people take their turns as we went through mastering your schedule and mastering the learning curve. And now it is their turn. And we're going to talk about mastering production today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I want to walk you guys through what this looks like from a 10,000 foot view. So when we're talking about mastering production, you'll see here I have or quit, and I want to direct you to the new agent master class, which gives you the whole overview on all of the 4 challenges. The first 3, your schedule, the learning curve, and production, all require a sense of urgency. That's why I put this or quit at the bottom, because if you do not master these things within a period of time, you're going to quit and no one's going to fault you. Who wants to be here a year from now still not good at sales? Nobody. And you're going to have a lot of trouble justifying the investment of time, effort, energy, and money into something that isn't working. And so, for your schedule, for the learning curve, and for production, there's necessarily a sense of urgency and a runway that you've got to get good at this as quickly as possible. Now, when we're talking about this, what is the goal of mastering production? The goal here in this season, which can't happen until you've mastered your schedule and the learning curve. The goal in this season is to get good at sales. Back in the learning curve, we got competent. The goal here is to get good at sales and put yourself in a place where you can reverse engineer your ratios to make whatever money you want to make. I talked about ratios in the last one. You're going to make outbound dials. Some people are going to answer. That's a ratio. Of the people who answer, you're going to set appointments. That's a ratio. Of the appointments you set, some are going to show. You're going to run those. That's a ratio. Of the ones you run, you're going to close some and submit some applications. That's a ratio. Of the applications you submit, some are going to issue as policies. That's a ratio. We want to get you to a place where you can reverse engineer and say, if I want to make 20 grand this month, based on my issue rate, I got to submit this many. Based on my close rate, I need to write this many. Based on my sit rate, I need to run this many appointments. And you can just reverse engineer those ratios. And so that's the goal of this season. Now, what are the challenges you're going to walk through? The challenges are going to be tightening those ratios. There might be 1 or 2 of those things you're just not good at. You might be great at setting appointments, but getting them to show is just a challenge. You might be getting people to show, but closing them is just tough. So in this season, we're tightening ratios. In the last season, we established them. Here we tighten them. This season is about these boom and bust seasons that we're trying to narrow and become consistent. And so if you're like, right, 15 grand in a 1 week, and then you're like, I nothing for 3 weeks, that's common in this season. It looks like maximizing contacts and networks, asking for referrals, turning 1 appointment with someone, connecting with that person into 3 or 4 appointments. It looks like embracing mentorship, identifying the problems you're having so you can leverage your mentors to solve those problems. It looks like massive action and constant correction. You're starting to see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel here in the season. You've had success. You're through the learning curve. You're selling, but you're not quite selling enough consistently, but you see it's possible. And then I put this hungry dogs run faster, because when you haven't mastered your schedule or the learning curve, it feels so far away. But here, it doesn't feel far away. You've tasted some of it, so you start to run faster. How do you know if you're in this season? Well, if you're still having boom bust results, you just haven't mastered production yet. If you're still below average on any one of those ratios, you haven't mastered production. If you're not getting referrals from clients, friends, family, you have not yet mastered production. If your warm market is off limits and you're not willing to talk to your friends and family and your acquaintances in your network, you just haven't mastered production yet. If you're not on leaderboards every week consistently, you just haven't mastered production yet. If you're not making at least $10,000 a month, you have not mastered production yet. So that's what we're going to be walking through. I've got incredible guests on here. I've got Miss Jill Johnson, who last year on her own pen wrote about $250,000 in premium. I'm going to let her introduce herself here in a second. And then Mr. Michael Mathews, who every single week right here in the Mac Room hosts the Top Producer Call. He has literally interviewed and talked to the best producers in this business. He knows every tip, every trick, every strategy. There is nothing that is a secret to him. So I could not be more excited for the two of them to share what they've learned in their season of mastering production. Jill and Michael, welcome to the call.
I'm not sure this is like a level playing field, right? Because Michael's like got a talk show and everything, and I'm just here, like top producer, but nowhere at the caliber here. So I'm not sure this is really fair.
Well, you want to know what's funny, Jill, and then Jim. I may let the cat out of the bag. It was never a secret. People actually just don't ask enough; they just assume. But I'm actually, Jill. You have a top producer title. I actually don't have the top producer title. I missed it like 7 times. Two times I actually tried, and I missed it by like $100 one time and 1,000 the other time. But yeah, I'm actually going for elite producer right now. So
Yeah, just go big or go home, right, Michael?
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Michael Matthews is like, I'm going to skip that top producer. It haunts me.
Yeah, it does. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna stop trying for it. I'm just gonna let me just shoot for elite, and maybe I'll fall short. Maybe I hit top. You never know.
I love that.
That's
Jill,
awesome.
why don't you go ahead, just introduce yourself. What brought you to Symmetry? And we'll take it from there. Michael, I'm gonna let you, as soon as Jill's done, I'm gonna let you follow suit, introduce yourself as well.
Awesome. So I'm Jill Johnson. I've built an agency with my husband Joe. He would like me to say I'm direct to him. We're direct to Jim. So like we're together. We're one. We're the Jandersons. Really, kind of what brought us here is really just kind of we wanted more for our family, right? Like we really desired to build some passive income and to kind of create this life where we've got 5 kids. And so my biggest joy is just pretty much following them around, right? And doing all of the things. And so truly, when we kind of saw this, we sat down with Jim and I'm like, okay, this is way bigger than like a side hustle. This is way bigger than just like, bringing in extra income. This is like legacy leaving. And for those of you who know my story, I lost my first husband young and 38. I was 38, left with 5 kids. And so doing that, I've kind of been on a mission since losing him of continuing his legacy, right? And making sure that my kids, who, now in college and all of the things, wouldn't struggle through that. And that we would have means to pay for it and them not come out with a ton of debt. And then now it's more of a vision of like, what is this going to look like for our grandkids and down the road? So that's really kind of why we're here.
Love that.
And for myself, you guys, Michael Mathews, I always want to show respect. Director Chris and Andrea Smith and the Marty Valor Ben Safety Port Danny Young hierarchy. Really grateful to be so, just because I wouldn't be the man I am right now without any of those names I just named. But for me, before coming into Symmetry, you guys, I actually didn't have any sales or insurance experience at all. I was green to this. So all I did. I played college basketball. So I was in school playing college basketball. I ended up dropping out. I was about 2 years in. COVID happened. Went through a ton of different injuries and I ended up dropping out. And I started this business at 22. Actually, wasn't actually looking for an opportunity, right? Symmetry kind of, how we say like Symmetry kind of found me. It kind of was the situation for me. My now fiance, she was working at Target and she wanted another job. So I went on Indeed and I was looking for a job for her. And then this just stuck out to me. It was the right day at the right time. And I had the right amount of curiosity. So that's what I did before coming in. Since being here in Symmetry, in the 3 years since 2022, I'm just shy of $1 million of my own pen. So that is me.
I love that. So I want to set the stage, guys, for who our intended audience is today, right? So we're assuming out of the gate that the people we're talking to have already mastered their schedule. They are showing up, they are showing up consistently. They know how, where, when to show up. They've eliminated their distractions, set their boundaries, and they're working, right? They've also mastered the learning curve. They're not afraid to invest in leads. They've made a handful of sales to leads. They've seen this sales loop close a few times. They're not afraid to buy leads. So we're working with people and talking to people that have seen the sales process through a handful of times. Now they want to get profitable, right? Now they want to make money. So Michael, I'm gonna kick this over to you, and I just want you from the depth of your experience, almost $1 million on your own pen, talking to literally everyone in the company that is doing this at the highest level. Where do you see the biggest pitfalls from people getting started to getting good? What do you see as the biggest hangups for people there?
It's two things. It's actually a combination of things for me. What I see is when, and this is, and I suffered from this, by the way, too, you guys, right? When coming in, we have a desire to be able to have a certain skill level to be able to get a certain result, but we're not willing for our activity to be able to match it and make it up, right? When you're new, you guys, right, and you're just getting going, you're trying to master your production. What it takes Jill to do, if it takes Jill she books 15 appointments to be able to have a 5K or and sit 10 to have a 5K week. When we're new, it might take me, I have to book 25 appointments and sit on 15 or maybe sit on 20 to have a 5K week. When you're new, you have to make up skill and experience with activity, right? And we can never develop our skill in this business without a high amount of activity. Activity has to come first, and the skill will be developed from there because you have to put yourself in a place and give yourself the opportunity to actually refine your skill. And if there is no work being done or no activity, there's no sample size at the end of the day, right? To actually be able to review, refine, and look at. So I see a lot of times, and again, it's we want to come in and we want to know, we want to be able to master the script before actually speaking to somebody. We want to master the objections before hearing the objections, right? And the way I look at it now, we're just making a problem when there wasn't a problem in the first place, right?
Mm.
When you haven't even experienced it, right? So go out there, put the work in, and then your skill is going to be able to develop on the other side. But you can't develop the skill without the activity. So I feel like that is the biggest pitfall for most agents, or there's many pitfalls, but one of the bigger ones for a lot of agents just coming in is just understanding that concept.
Yeah, and so Jill, hearing that from him on this, like you just need massive action piece of this thing because you got to set up a reasonable enough data like sample size to draw conclusions. How do you define massive action? And I ask this question because when people are new, they've got through the learning curve. They don't know what is a lot of dials. What does that look like? What is a lot of appointment set? Can you give some real hard metrics in what people wanting to master production should be looking to do as far as activity goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a for me anyway, it's not a certain number of dials, right? Like we always talk about that, oh, like the 300 dials a week or 500 or whatever. It is very much more about the appointments booked. And so I really think the non-negotiables, especially if you're wanting to take this, we're not talking to like, part-time or whatnot. So it's definitely like 15 to 20 sits, right? And it's dial until. And so you got to really kind of get it in your brain that you're dialing until those appointments are on your books. And then when you've mastered that level of skill, right? And I know that I've got, 15 to 20 appointments, I'm going to sit more than half of those, right? And then I'm going to close more than half of those. And then that's how you can kind of, reverse engineer those $5,000 weeks where they just become really, really consistent. And I think we can kind of look at things and yes, overcoming objections and all of that, all of the skills that it takes. But really what it comes down to, the only thing that's going to create that momentum for you and that consistency in that business is just like that's like a non-negotiable for you, right? Is those 15 to 20 appointments. And making sure that you're sitting with those appointments. And if that calendar's not full, you're not in business, right? You're full time. You're a life insurance agent. And so if that calendar is not full, that's your job that day to get it full.
Yeah, I love that so much, the dial until mentality. And we talked about that a little bit in the mastering the learning curve piece of this and recognizing, guys, that if you've got big goals here, this is a learning curve. Now you've gotten through that piece, but now we're mastering this. It might take you 1,000 dials a week. I need you to hear that. Don't be afraid of that number. Don't be afraid of 1,500 dials a week. A lot of people have come before you that are lazier than you and dumber than you that just outworked you in the massive action piece of that. Now, Michael Mathews, how do people keep their head in the game when they're doing the massive action? They're doing 1,500 dials in a week, but they've only set 7 or 8 appointments. And they're like, this, I'm putting in tons of effort. I ain't seeing much of these results yet. How do you keep your head in the game?
Two things. Something I tell all my agents is number one, right? We're going to get into mindset, but number one, I'm somebody, I don't coach off of events, I coach off of trends. Right now, yes, we're gonna have those weeks where the numbers don't line up and it's just not in our favor. But guess what? The numbers will always owe you. So that week, I made right. I have done 1,500 dials, and maybe I didn't speak to as many people as I normally speak to. Right? Maybe I didn't book as many appointments as I normally do, or sit, or close, or whatever it is. And one of the mistakes I made, Jim, when I was new, is I was so reactional, right, to those weeks where I would just swing the pendulum, right? I would go from, man, this week sucked. Like, it's not my normal week. I don't know what happened. And then I would go from, all right, this is the script I'm using, this is the process I'm going through. And I'll swing it completely to the other side, thinking I was doing something wrong, when in reality, the numbers are just the numbers that week. I just have to keep showing up and the numbers will owe me. Right. So number one, I have to figure out, is this a trend? Right. Well, how do I look at a trend? A trend is something that is going on over weeks and weeks and weeks in a row, right? We like to say, hey, look at your business over the last 60 to 90 days, especially like if you want to make a lead change or whatever it may be. Look at it. Has it been consistent, right, for weeks and months, right? An event is something that may happen that day or that week. I'm not making a change off of something that just happened this one week. Let's do it again. Let's see if this is consistent, because it may not be like any problems with what you're doing. Second thing, to be able to actually get through that, to be able to keep your head in the game, in my mind, you guys, it comes down to vision, right? You got to know where you're going, right? Yes, this is the season that you're going through right now in this moment, right? Where it is hard to be able to show up, but guess what? It's not going to be hard forever, right? You're just developing those muscles. I like to look at this business like when we're going to the gym. When we're going to the gym the first time, like number one, we have a workout plan and we have a meal plan. We know if I show up to the gym tonight and put the work in, I'm not going to gain the weight or lose the weight by tomorrow. I have to keep showing up over and over again to develop that muscle, and it's going to hurt, right? I'm stretching and I'm tearing it. I'm going to be sore. I'm not going to want to do it, but guess what? I know I'm going to be better for it. So to make that easier, you have to know where you're going and just understand this is part of the process. And when you're new, you just have to focus on progression. If you can focus on progression and building up those small wins, it gets a little bit easier. I'm not going to say it's going to just magically get easier and it's not going to be hard, but it's going to get a little bit easier. And when you track progression to small wins, you're going to be able to see yourself build momentum really quickly, because the bar isn't results. It's like, hey, the bar isn't, man, I made a sale, I did good this week. It's no, I was struggling with objections last week. I overcame those objections and I'm booking appointments now. Well, guess what? That's progression. What is the task now this week? Right? Maybe it's sitting on appointments, maybe it's closing. So I would say that is how you can keep your head in the game and get through those tough seasons when you're just trying to figure this business out with production.
Man, I love that. No, so
Definitely.
what I heard in two parts of this is, one, you got to ensure you're making progress. You can't stay stagnant. Two, you can't draw conclusions from small sample sizes. I even put this in the comments, that one thing you said, and those of y'all watching this, even on replay, I need you to take notes and write this one down. He said, I don't coach off of events. I coach off of trends. You don't have trends without massive action. All right. Now, we talked about these ratios. Now, in this season, you're going to be tightening these ratios. I want to give you what average ratios look like, right? So when you're talking to people, you should be setting appointments with about 1/3 of the people you're talking to. So if you talk to 100 people, I'm going to be looking for somewhere around 30 appointments set. Of the appointments you set on average, I'm going to be looking for about half of those to show. So if you're setting or if you're setting 30 appointments, I'm going to expect about 15 of those to actually show up. Of the 15 that show, I'm going to expect you to close about half of those. So I'm going to be looking for about 7 or 8 applications. And of the applications submitted, we're looking for a 70% minimum, probably closer to 80% issue rate. So if you're submitting 7 or 8, I'm going to want 6 or 7 of those to actually issue. Now, what I see, Jill, with lots of people that have established their ratios don't look like 30%, 50%, 50%, 80%. A lot of times, they're actually really good at a
Yes.
couple of those things. It's just going to be a glaring thing, one glaring thing. And I call it one door, one lock, one key. There's going to be one of those where if they can just tighten that, the rest falls into place. So, my question for you is, do you remember which of those was your biggest struggle personally?
Yeah, well, so early on, early on, it was like I would get that app written, right? And I would get a decline and I wouldn't know what to do, right? Like I think that's kind of like a struggle of like, okay, I got through the appointment. I actually got them to say, yes, let's write the application. And then I'd get a decline and I'd be like, oh my goodness, like what now? Like I guess I can't help them kind of thing, right? And so that's a skill that you really, really have to dive into of knowing like when I'm going to sit down with my clients, it's like, yes, we're starting here. And those things pop up that you just can never like, sometimes imagine like, okay, really? You didn't remember that you had, a kidney transplant or something like that. And so you've got to have those pivots lined up. And so now like when we're training new agents and I'm working with new agents and then for myself, it's like I know where I'm going first, right? But I'm also know where I'm going second, third, and then finally like an accidental and a guaranteed issue kind of type of product. And I think that one thing that we can kind of as agents we can kind of get lazy with, right, is like, okay, well, I've got these other appointments, I'm just going to kind of move on to then. It's like it's our job to get them protected, right? And so early on in my business and learning this, I was terrible at that. Like I just didn't even know. It's like you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think sometimes as agents, we really got to make sure that yes, I'm thinking about this play that I'm doing right now, but we got to think about down the line too of where I'm going to go with that, and making sure that that policy gets across the line and that client is protected. Now, a lot of that has changed because I love my carriers with the instant issue. And so I'm so big, like our agency, we're all about the instant issue if we can, right? We can always pivot to if, to another product, but that completely changed my ratio. I know that the year where I did the 250,000 on my own pen, my issue rate was very poor in the beginning, right? But I ended the year with over, about 70% issue rate. So even though it was so bad in the beginning, like I got better at all of that. And that's hard to do. But we can't get lazy with our clients. Like that we owe it to them to make sure that at the end of the day, they've got a policy that works with them, and that they're protected.
That's going to be something I'm going to come immediately back to, Jill. I want to outright have that conversation because it's so important. But Michael, I'm going to kick the same question to you that I asked her. Looking at each of those ratios, was there one for you when you were new that was uniquely bad? Or were you more like me, where like I had to peel it like an onion? I was bad at each one in a row, and I had to like learn every there was none of those I was good at out of the gate. But I'm curious from you where your struggle was.
Man, Jim, I sucked at them all. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I said, you guys, I came in here green, right? Super green. I knew nothing. So when I came in, my first 4 months, I didn't take the business seriously enough, right? In my first six, I know I've been actually was looking back at the numbers. I've been saying, hey, I did 15K in my first 6 months. It was actually 12. But I was looking back at the numbers, and in my first 4 months, like I didn't treat the business seriously enough to even call this a job. It was a hobby. Like I couldn't even call it, I wasn't taking it serious enough to even get frustrated at the business, right? But when I actually locked in November and December of 2021, and I started going through my learning curve, right? I took a bite of that humble pie and I said, hey, man, I'm the problem. right? There's 6, 7, 8,000 agents here, right? Their success is common here. I'm the new variable to the system, and I need to make sure the system can work for me, but it's going to work based upon the work that I'm putting in and how coachable I'm actually going to be. So November came, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go through. Jim, that first week in November, right? I couldn't book an appointment to save somebody's life, save my life, save nobody's life. I was just struggling on the phones very, very hard. Where I didn't book any appointments. Week 2 came, and I focused so hard on that week, going back to what I talked about progression. I just focused so hard on, all right, how can I just get through the first line? Like, I just want to get through the first line. That's it. Right? Let me get through the first line. If I book an appointment, cool. Let me get through the first line. What I learned is when I got through the first line, I typically booked the appointment. So week 2 came and I booked 15 appointments, but nobody showed. So new problem. I'm like, okay, now I got to work on my show rate, right? Next week, booked 13 appointments, nobody showed. Had another donut. I was like, okay, I actually have to work on this, right? Like, and actually start being intentional about it. And then finally, going into week 4, week 5, my appointments started to show, but I sucked at closing real bad. I would probably say those other ones took me about a week to figure out, right? Just with putting a lot of activity in and like recording and reviewing and all those things. So, but the hardest one was closing. Like that's the one that took me out where I couldn't close a thing. Like I was really, really bad. And the reason because is because I looked at this. Yes, we're in sales, you guys, but when we're in sales, that doesn't mean I have to take the position of starting a sales pitch or being convincing. I thought I had to talk the entire time. And when you're sitting down with your families, you don't have to be the one talking all the time. You just got to be the one asking the questions all the time. I want the families I'm sitting with to actually tell me the things, opposed to me tell them the things. And when I made that switch and I became a questions based producer, then the quality of my appointments shifted, the quality of my sales, the amount of referrals I was able to get, and also the pressure it took off of my back. Because you guys, when you're telling your clients things all the time, you constantly have to think of the next thing to say. That's a hard job. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? But if you just ask questions, your clients give you the information, and now you have fuel to ask another question, right? And it was that shift just took me, that took me pretty much the whole month, the end of November and all of December to figure out. And that I'll probably say that's the hardest one because the other ones took me about a week when I actually focused on it.
Yeah. One of the things that I share with agents, I'm going to share my screen and show you guys some real agent numbers in a second. But one of the things I focus on in the season for people, I call it one door, one lock, one key. And when you can look at it, it's so easy to feel like you're overwhelmed. All of this is hard. You're good at nothing. You don't know where to stop or start even. But when you look at these ratios, again, there's gonna be one of them that highlights itself as this is what you need to work on. And what I'll tell agents is don't come back next week still bad at the same thing. Don't just say, I'm bad at this, and then be bad at it this month and be bad at it next month. If you know getting people to show up to the appointment is your weak spot, watch every video, knock on every door, talk to who you need to talk to, practice, write scripts, record yourself, listen back, spend hours, obsess over it so that you are not bad at that same thing the next week. Let me go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. This is our accountability sheets. I go through this with agents every single morning. I blanked out the names because I didn't ask them if I could put this like for posterity, like in a recording. But you've got here in this top line, you've got dials. So how many outbound dials they made, how many contacts, how many people they talked to, the appointments set, the appointments run, the application submitted, and then the APV submitted, right? This is what you're looking at. So here's an agent that is clicking on all cylinders. For the month so far, 1,300 outbound dials, talked to 90 people. Again, I'm looking for about a 1/3 appointment set rate. Of the 90 she talked to, set 39 appointments. That's even a little better. This is an agent that's good at setting appointments. Of the 39 she set, 19 of them showed, right? Perfect. I want about half of those. Nailing it. Of the 19 that showed, about 50% close rate is going to be an average. Of the 19 that showed, she closed 15. Close rate is off the charts for 14,000 in premium. She's making money. Now, I want to come down here and I want to zoom in on this agent with the 7,500 minimum. We've got smaller dial numbers, 100, 445 dials, but talked to 113 people. Of the 113 people, set 29 appointments, a little under 30%, but within an acceptable range. Of the 29 appointments set, only 6 showed. And of the 6 showed, right, 50% close rate, as I expect. So what am I looking at? One door, one lock, one key. Show rate is the thing. If she was able to get 15 instead of 6 and the closing rate bared out, she'd be looking at 7 or 8 apps, right? It's going to fall into place when you fix the one thing that's holding you back. So for this agent, it is don't come into the next month still bad at the same thing. Does that make sense? Are you guys kind of coaching agents that same way on that stuff?
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Because it's just a choice. If you do come into the next month and you're struggling with the same things, how intentional were you, right? Or how important was it for you to actually be able to get through whatever was holding you back, right? So it's just in this business is just made up of many choices and many commitments, right? Just make one small choice, one small commitment, actually be intentional. I like to call it student of the game time. Put an hour in your schedule a day, right? Not in income producing time, but an hour in your schedule per day to actually master your craft, right? Whether that's role playing with a sideline agent, whether that's watching a video or a podcast or plugging into like a call, like how are you mastering your craft, right? And if you do that just an hour a day, that's what I had to do. An hour a day doesn't have to be take a ton of time, and do it when you don't have to dial or run appointments. It will you will see so much progression.
Yeah, so good. Jill, do you want to add anything to that or can
No,
I move on?
yeah, no, I think you can move on. That's exactly how we coach too. And it's all about what Michael said, you know, and also I will say, like, send your recordings to your mentor too. Like, do those recordings. That is so valuable for a mentor to be able to hear, because a lot of times it's just a little tweak, right? Of maybe the lockdown or, you know, actually overcoming that objection. I think that's a really huge, valuable tool as well. It's kind of humbling, right? And it's hard to do, but it will definitely pay off.
Yeah, I want to come back to the conversation you initiated, Jill, in looking at clients as people to help.
Mhm.
Now, we got questions in the comments, and it's such an important topic because when you're new, you're going to set this appointment, you're going to hope it shows, you're going to run that appointment, and then whatever happens, happens. And for most of you, you're never going to talk to that client again. You're either going to close it or you're not, and that is the end, and you're moving on. As you go through this process of mastering production, you connect with that person and you recognize that there's a good part of your business that I call even salvage business. And what I mean by salvage business is going to be we got declined in that appointment and I got to go back to the drawing board and we're going to set 2 or 3 more appointments. It's going to mean what I first thought was going to happen, we got to pivot off of that. It's going to be they needed to think about it. And now I got to try to get them back to the table. There's a lot more going on. In a perfect world, we set appointment, run appointment, close appointment. That's a perfect world. But Jill, Michael, you guys both know really well, it doesn't always work out perfectly. So, how did you master that in the nerves of the moment and the wanting to close it and not knowing? How did you master the craft of slowing down, connecting with that client, helping them realize you're here to help them solve a problem, even if we can't solve it immediately now? How did you learn to posture that, take control of that, build that rapport so the pressure to do it now or never didn't really affect you anymore?
Yeah, I think it's really about, and you kind of touched on it, it's building that relationship up front, right? Like, I'm your agent, Jim. Like, I am going to see this across the finish line. Like, we have a goal of getting something in place to protect your mortgage or life insurance or whatnot. So I'm your friend here, right? Like, and I'm going to build that rapport with them right from the beginning in the appointment. And so in doing that, building that rapport, they're going to answer my call when I call, right? They're going to, like, they're not going to ghost me. And so it's really about slowing down, getting to know them, making sure you understand the why, who their beneficiaries are, like what we're actually doing. Like, is it, protecting the house? Is it making sure that, no one has to come up with your funeral expenses, or what truly is the why there? And I think it's setting the expectation like right off the get-go in that appointment. Okay. So like when I'm working with a client, I'm constantly saying, hey, this, what we're doing right now, this is, I'm doing nothing more than giving you a quote, right? Like this is just nothing more than a number on a piece of paper. But until we get in and actually write the application, we see what the company sees, right? With your reports and your MIBs and your prescriptions, we truly don't know what you qualify for. Right. And so it's kind of walking them through. First of all, I say that about, I don't know, 6 times. It's annoying how many times I say it, but it gets people to write that first application. Right. But then when I'm writing that first application, I'm also setting up the expectations of we may not get an approval here, and that's okay. Right. Like that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. Like I work with so many carriers, we're going to get this figured out. And so it's kind of building that rapport of, yes, we're going to go, America first, right? Like we're going to try that, or LGA for Banner first. If that's not okay, then if that's all right. We're going to keep going, right? And we're going to go until we get this we get this all figured out. It also is a lot of like, I mean, this is something I like early on, is like slowing down on the application, right? And making sure you're getting everything in there correctly, so it's not a silly mistake on your end that's holding this up. And I think what that does is it really creates that bond that you've got their best interest in mind, right? It's not dollar size in my mind, in my eyes here. It's really making sure that the client is going to be covered. So what does that do? That they're always going to answer my phone. If there's a decline, I'm moving immediately into it, right? Like if it's something that comes up in the application, I know my next I'm not going to wait a week, because you're going to lose the trust. Like they're going to feel like, hey, I don't know that this person can actually get this over the line for me, right? And so if that application stalls and you take too much time with it, it's you're going to lose that client. And so it's all about making sure you're checking in. Like they get little texts from me like, hey, this is kind of where we're at. I'll give them phone calls. And it's the whole time it's building that rapport. And then what does that do, right? If I'm standing on top of, I'm staying on top of my business and making sure that this is getting pushed through, that's just going to open me up for referrals. Like I'm going to be able to help their family. I'm going to be able to, write their kids who are their beneficiaries, things like that. And then making sure that you're like sending something to them, right? Like doing those follow-up calls and actually going over the policy with them, making sure that that business is sticky. They always get a card from me in the mail too, and like a little piece of paper of filling it out, like why this is important to them, and reminding them of kind of what we went through over the course of like actually getting the application in process.
Yeah, what I heard in that, and I put it over here in the comments, I don't think you guys watching the replay can see that, but it's very much this moving from transactional to relational. When you're new, you feel nervous, and when you're nervous, you want to get it done quickly. And so you end up rushing through it. How many of you you're through the learning curve, you made some sales, but your appointment is really like 90 seconds long. You're getting on the phone and you are dropping quotes and prices right out of the gate because you're acting in a transactional manner. Here's what I sell. Do you want to buy it? You haven't yet established the problem we're even solving. You're not setting up these policies as an obvious solution to an obvious problem. There's an art in that. And what Jill is helping you realize is slow it down. Set the expectation. The client is going to be in a hurry and want you to get to the point. Your job and your posture is to take control of the pace of this thing like you've been there 1,000 times. If my knee is bothering me and I go to the doctor, I might want to get out of there real quick. Like, let's go, doc, but I'm in his playground now, right? He's been there 1,000 times. He knows the solution. He's going to slow this down, follow a process. This is what we're doing here. And that's part of just becoming an expert in that. Michael, I wanna kind of kick that same thing to you on things you've done. I'm actually gonna turn around and walk and grab something out of the closet here while you're answering. How did you go through that process of moving from a transactional relationship with clients to more of a relational one?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you kicked this to me because as you asked it, it resonated with me a ton. And the reason being, you guys, um, the way my mind works, I am such a systematic, like a step by step person, right? When I came in this business, you guys, it was not natural for me to be able to ask about somebody's family or ask about a mortgage. Why? I was 22. I didn't even know what it entailed to get a mortgage. I didn't know what happened after you passed away. I'm like, oh, they just like keep the home, right? Like I had no clue. So I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know what I was even looking for, right? So for me, where I got to hear some of my mentors' appointments, right? My one of my uplines, Marty Valor, he is such a natural rapport person. Like he can just flow through a conversation. He can flow through a conversation, make somebody feel right, like they're their friend. He can build that trust, right? He can ask, and it just comes so naturally to him. For me, that was not the case. I had to be super intentional, and this goes back to everything we just talked about before, right? Activity, tracking your numbers, right? Record and review. And for me, what I was able to go through and identify was number one, as I was dialing Jim, I realized I was like, oh, this person has the same concern as the last person I spoke to. Oh, this person also has the same concern. Then I realized there was three different concerns, major concerns that most families fell into, and I had to identify these three. Right, the first one, right, it's a husband and wife. They're in a situation where this coverage is a luxury. It's not a necessity. They have a ton of things in place. They just want something. They want to do their job as parents, and they want to put an extra layer of coverage in place. Number two, right, it was maybe same situation, husband and wife, but this is a necessity. Right, without this coverage, they're going to lose the home, right? They're going to lose it all because one of them is the breadwinner or they rely on each other. All right. The third one, right? You're sitting with a single parent, right? Who's trying to protect or a single person, they're trying to protect the home for themselves when it comes to living benefits, or they're trying to be able to protect the home for their kids. All right. Those are the three situations that I saw happen more times than not. And once I got the opportunity to realize, like, oh, these are all the same situation. Like, it's just three. It's not I'm dealing with 100 different problems. It's just three. Well, I got the opportunity to prep. So I got the opportunity to prep him like, okay, well, I guess I get to ask each of these people that fall in the situation the same question then, because it's the same problem, to try to lead them down the same path. So I started to learn, this is how I started learning how to ask questions, was I would ask a question and then it would be a close-ended question and it would be a yes or no. Then I found myself thinking more times than not. And I was like, I don't want to do a lot of thinking. Like I don't want to have to figure out what I'm gonna say next. Ask an open-ended question. Then I would find that cycle. Like, okay, I can ask these same set of questions to people that fall in this category, right? And it's going to lead them to this destination. I knew the destination I was trying to bring a client to. It was just how do I get them there? So reverse engineering the questions and learning how to be able to ask it in different ways. So that's how I prepped. But the only way I can do that is having a huge sample size of sitting with enough families to figure out, all right, these are the three major situations. I can ask these questions. There was a lot of trial and error in that. And something, and Joe, I love that you said it. And this is the cool part about this business. There's different ways to be able to approach it. For me, again, building rapport wasn't natural. Actually, I run live appointments quite often in the Mac room, and what my agents say all the time, like Michael, you actually don't like build rapport. I'm like, they're like, you just ask a question, you just kind of hop into. I'm like, yeah. And the question I ask, how was your week? Oh, it's been good. All right, cool. Wait, hey, I know we set this time up. I want to value your time. I also want to value my time. And I go right into it because the way I build rapport, I like to call it professional rapport. I am building rapport by showing up as a professional. I am asking the hard questions that most people wouldn't ask. I am diving into a need, and that is how I learned how to show my concern, right? And how I actually care. It is taking them through the process and treating it that way and literally looking at it like as a doctor where I'm diagnosing you and I am just diving in step by step. And that's how I carried myself because I tried to mimic Marty when I was new and tried to be natural and be friendly and it just didn't work. So I kept falling on my face. I had to find, all right, how does this work for me? And I just pretty much took everything that Jill said and the symmetry system, and I just broke it down into really simple steps. So I had that structure. I got the opportunity. We got to the same destination, right? I just had to learn how to be able to ask questions better, and I just put enough work in to figure out, all right, what are the situations that families are going to fall into more times than not. And that just made it easier to prep because I'm terrible with on the spot thing. Well, I guess I'm better now. But if it came to on the spot thinking back then, you guys, I was a deer in the headlights, right? But guess what? I booked my appointment. I knew it was coming up. I asked the right questions on the phone, so I knew their situation. Well, I'm gonna take 10, 15 minutes before my appointment to actually prep for the appointment, opposed to showing up to it randomly. So that's how I dealt with it, Jim. I had to take a really step by step and systematic approach because it wasn't natural. That was a skill I literally had to build.
Yeah, man, that's so good. And one of the things I'd even forgot about this too, that it can be so overwhelming when you're new because there's so much going on. We don't know clients' troubles at first, so we assume it could be any of 100 things. And as Michael said, wait a minute, as I did massive action, I realized there's only about three categories here. I felt that way with the product portfolio. Like we have so many companies, so many policies. We want to prep for an appointment. Like, where do we even go? I mean, we got Navigator now, and that helps a ton. But you know what? I want to know what I realized? Well, we've got so many companies and policies. There were about five or six I used all the time. It was like once I saw this profile, I knew I'm going here. This profile goes here. And you end up not needing to know all of it. There are gonna be your go-to ones where you're comfortable with the application, you're comfortable with the process, you like the carrier, and it starts to narrow what it seems wide at first. It starts to narrow to a much more manageable part for your mind. Jill, you talked about a card. I want to give some people like an actual example. And this came from all of the conversations I had with people when I was exploring what coverage do you have in place already. They would all tell me they've got life insurance already. Cool. What do you have? Can I tell you? Nobody knew. Not one person I ever talked to knew what they had. It was maybe something through work, maybe some guy they bought something a few years ago. And I thought to myself, brand new, I'm like, I never want one of my clients not knowing what they bought. So I went to Canva and I literally made this card. It says my life insurance policy. In the bottom corner, it has a picture of a safe and says keep in a safe place. On the back, I have their name, the amount of the death benefit, the details, whether it's a term policy, when it expires, the insurance company, the policy name, like quality level term or whatever it is, the policy number, and then call to make a claim with my number at the bottom. Now, this served a couple things. One, I would tell them, you're going to get this in the mail. I want you to put it in a safe, put it somewhere. You're going to get policy documents, but that's going to be a 25-page PDF that you're going to have no idea where it is. And if you ever need it, you're going to be like, where do I even go? I want you to be able to go into the safe, pull this out, see everything you need with the number to call. And guess what? That makes business stickier because they now physically know what they bought. It's not a hypothetical anymore. I gave them a physical thing that they can hold, see, know this is mine. I have this. And so it's just a good customer service piece that I figured that out on my own. I didn't have a call like this telling me you should go do that. I'm like, I just don't want my clients to not know what they have. And obviously, Jill, yeah, jump in on
can
that.
I piggyback on that too? One thing I've started to do too is when I'm wrapping up with a client is like, this is what we did today for you, right? This is what we were able to do, right? We were able to put 50,000, and just kind of go back over like, does all of that make sense to you? And getting that confirmation, and then in 10 days when that policy shows up, calling them again, even if you don't get them, they know that like this is what we just did. And I think it takes the stress, like they're just like, oh, I feel so much better because we got this taken care of, right? But they know what they got. I mean, everybody I talk to, nobody knows what they have. And you want to make sure they know your name and that this is what we put in place. So I think that's so huge. And kind of going over it at the end, like, this is what we accomplished for you today.
Yep.
And just to edify that real quick, I'll make this quick. You guys, the number one reason chargebacks happen is because people don't know what they have in place, right? They don't know what they have and they never hear from their agent again, right? After that agent makes a sale. That's why chargebacks happen. Chargebacks don't really happen as much because, and I would talk to the carrier about this. I was at AMM headquarters and I asked, I was like, hey, what do you guys see as the biggest reason for chargebacks? And she just simply said, yeah, an agent makes a sale. That client doesn't hear from them for a month. They see the money come out of their account. Sometimes they don't see things come in the mail because maybe the agent doesn't communicate like, hey, it's only going to come via email. And they don't know what they bought and they just kind of get scared and feel like they got scammed, right? So they go through and cancel. It's not because the need changed, right? They're just unsure, right? So doing what Jim and Jill said, it will help a ton, and right, and that's directly from the carrier. So if you want to keep your net placed high, definitely do the follow up. That was something that I had to learn big time.
Jill, I want to go to you on this one because you started this conversation, but let's get into prepping for the appointment to be prepared. So you've talked about two things that I've heard you say, I think a couple times here now. One is you love instant issue business. One is you always have a backup plan. So can you talk about the importance of those things? Walk us through, and Michael, I'm going to have you say same question is walking through your appointment prep process so that you're ready for that. But Jill, why the importance of instant issue and what do you like give us an example of companies, policies, the stuff you're looking at, and then what is a backup plan to that? How do you have a pivot prepared?
Yeah, so I really don't spend this might be not what you want, but I don't spend a ton of time prepping for the appointment, like, right? Because I think a lot of times we can get all of our best laid plans, and then the next thing you know, you get into it. Yes, I know where I'm going to go, and I kind of like you said, Jim. I mean, well, I guess you were my mentor, right? And you're like, these are the six main carriers that we do. This is kind of what we write, and then I just slowly figured out it's like, okay, so if this is a no go, then I go here, then I go here. And so in prepping for those appointments, yes, I've got my, especially if it's mortgage protection, those take a lot more prep. So I've got all that kind of lined up where it's like, okay, we're going to go banner first, right? Because you've got the living benefits there. It's a great policy. I'm taking care of their family, but I'm also taking care of my family. My family is very expensive, and I want to make sure that our agents are staying in business. We've also got our SBLI, and then I've got some pivots where it's if it turns all of a sudden like not into term, right? Because that can happen too. Then I'm going to pivot to Americo Eagle Select, and then obviously like last resort would be like guaranteed issue or something like that. If I'm starting with somebody that is more of a whole life final expense type, we've got somebody older. I just feel like just pay attention to what HQ is pointing us to, right? Like I'm going to do the AMM, I'm going to do the UHL, and I'm going to do Americo for those because I know right then, right? Like for example, like the Americo app takes me like 10 minutes, right? Or not even 10 minutes to know I can quickly move into another application. The client barely realizes that they've got I mean, I don't even have to use the word decline. Like, okay, I don't think this is going to be a fit. This is kind of where we need to go. So I don't know that it's necessarily like a lot of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't take like hours out of my day to prep for an appointment, right? I kind of know I've got it kind of lined up of like, this is where I'm taking this. And so, yes, I'll take a little bit of time to prep for that appointment, but that prepping for that appointment shouldn't be taking, you need to be dialing and booking those appointments and holding those appointments versus like, prepping and doing things like that.
Yeah, same question over to you, Michael. Appointment prep, instant issue. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take you guys back to when I was new and getting through and finding that rhythm because now it'd be the same as Jill now. I don't spend a ton of time. Why? Because I know I'm not gonna see anything new, right? And I also have developed my skill enough at this point where even if I do hear something new, I'm good enough like to be able to pivot on the spot or whatever it may be. So same thing when it comes to same thing I just talked about with situations and like questions and clients fall in those buckets. You're also going to hear the same medical conditions. It is rare, right? I do get one-off conditions, but it's rare when I get that. Most people have high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, right? Maybe they had a heart attack, stroke, COPD. You're going to find the same situations there. But when I was new, this is what I tell my agents. Number one, right, to do a proper build out and to prep for the appointment, I need to know, well, you need to know the situation. Why is this important to the client? Who are they leaving the home to? What is the situation for their beneficiary without their income there? Why is that important? Well, you need to know, are you going into this appointment to show full or partial payoff, or are you going in there to be able to show CPC? right? As a new agent, I needed to know that. Why? Because I wasn't good enough to be able to pivot from one of the two on the spot, right? So can you do that prep work? And guess where that starts? That starts on the phone when you actually book the appointment for the first time. Like when you speak to them, you actually book the appointment. So can I ask some quality questions on the phone and get that information? That is going to allow me to go back to what I said, prep those questions a little bit, especially if I'm nervous and I'm unsure. It just allows me to feel a little bit more confident. I'm like, okay, I know this is their situation. I can even take this to my mentor and be like, hey, this is their situation. What question should I ask? Right? Or like, what are some things that I may not see yet? And that's what I did when I was new, right? I did that exact same thing. After that, right, we need the client qualification form filled out, right? Obviously, getting their age, medical info, and all those things. So I know what they actually qualify for, right? And what product to be able to point them to. And I'm somebody that's the same Jim as yourself, Jill, yourself. I'm keeping it super short and simple, like to like 3 carriers. You guys, in 2023, from June to December, I wrote 2 carriers. Really, I can't even say the second one that much. I probably wrote 3 policies. The one carrier I wrote because I wanted to I wanted to earn a carrier trip. I wrote AMM. Guess what they had? They had a term product. They had a final expense product. And darn, you guys, those are some good term and final expense products, right? So guess what? You can make it happen with one carrier. And then I had a guaranteed issue product on the backside as well. But really, that is all I wrote there. So keep it simple, right? All the carriers are pretty much the same, right? They're all same price wise, pretty much, right? Relative 10, $20. So choose 2 to 3 and stick with them. Right now, our agency big on Banner and big on Americo. Right, I've written what 20 apps this month, and 10 of them are with Banner. Right, keep it simple. Right, you don't have to have all these things. Right, keep a couple things in your tool belt. After that, we're using either Navigator or we're going to sfgquotes.com, and then I was like, hey, now you're just going through and prepping with your mentor, right? Like run it by your mentor, make sure it's on the track that they have, right? Like would they give that a thumbs up and say, hey, you know that you did exactly the way I would do it, or be like, hey, actually, I gotta make this tweak here. Even if you know the answer, it's good to get a second perspective, right? That's how I run my business, right? Because somebody may look at it a little bit different way than me, and I'm humble enough to be able to accept that, right? So that's how I prep for it, and then now, I guess that just happened in like 2 3 minutes because you just got the experience at this point.
Yeah. And that's that, like, I want you guys to hear the hope in that. Like, it used to take a long time to prep. Now it doesn't. You get better at this if you keep going as you become more familiar. We got a few minutes left. I'm going to share a couple just straight tips and tricks that I learned the hard way. And while I'm sharing those, I'm hoping it'll inspire each of you to think of a couple of those things too that we can kind of rapid fire share with people. The first one was the most important part of the appointment is establishing the problem we're solving in the client's mind. Even if you think you know the problem, it doesn't matter until they see the problem. And so once they see the problem, now it's clear the problem needs a solution. Until I learned that, I struggled to close business. People needed to think about it. Why did they need to think about it? Because the problem and solution weren't aligning in their mind. So of course they needed to think about it. So establishing the problem is huge. The second thing that I learned that was so big after getting declines, needing to pivot, getting declines. I'm never going to forget this. I don't even remember which client it was now. It was my third application I'm submitting on the same client, and I was too new to know how to pivot on the spot. So this is my third appointment with this client. And you want to know what I had to do? I had to ask them all of their info for the third time. The third time. I don't know their address. I'm asking them their address. Do you mind giving me your address again for the third time? Do you mind giving me your beneficiary's name again for the third time? And once I put these two pieces together, that number one, the problem's established. Number two, I've already submitted an application on them. That has 90%, if not 100% of all the info you're going to need. It became very simple for me. After I would submit a policy, if it was an instant issue, we'd get a decline coming back. What would I do? I'd go price out an alternative. Since the problem's already established, I don't even need to get them on the phone. I'd shoot them a text and just be like, hey, no worries. We can move here. Here's the price. They'd be like, great, let's go. I'm like, I'm just going to write that up quick and kick it over to you in an email to sign. I don't even have to get them on the phone again. They know the problem they're solving. I already have the info from a previous application. I can just copy over and then kick it to them to review and sign. We don't even have to set the second appointment again. So I'm gonna kick it to you guys on any like quick little things that helped you guys close this gap.
I think for me, we always talk about kind of like raising the lid, right? The capacity, dreaming, building an agency, winning the trips, like all of the things. But I think for me, I had to like raise the floor, right? I had to raise my minimum standard. So for me, that was like always booking the 12 to 15 sits, right? It was never missing a huddle. It was always being on camera. It was never ending a week without protecting at least two or three families, right? If my lowest month was 3,000, that meant raising my floor. That meant my lowest month going forward, I wouldn't do anything less than 10, right? Or 20 or whatever that is. And so if you can create that consistency and actually raise the floor, then that's your new baseline and you're always going to excel above that.
So good.
Two quick things. First, right, we talked about it a lot, or right, and I've mentioned it, but get good at asking questions, you guys. Like I cannot harp on it enough. Like Jim, you just talked about it. Until your client, right, says the problem, right, there's no solution that actually can be found. Because I promise you guys, there's nothing you're actually going to tell your client to convince them or try to build value, right, that's going to make them like, you know what, Michael, that is a fantastic idea. Right. When it's your idea, you're a salesperson. When it's their idea, it's the most amazing thing in the world, right? So you need to get good at asking questions and have your client tell you why this is important. And basically, I am asking questions like, again, I'm beginning with the end in mind. I know where I'm trying to go. So how I do it, I'm looking for a specific answer. I am going to ask enough questions until I get my client to say one of two things. You know, Michael, I really don't know what we would do in that situation, right? Like, okay. Well, Jim, real quick, if you had to think, right? If you had to think on what that situation may look like and what you would have to do, what do you think it may be? I don't accept I don't knows, by the way. I don't accept I don't knows because if they give you an I don't know once, they're going to give you an I don't know forever, right? So I frame the question as a hypothetical, and they're like, well, I'm just going to lose the house, right? And we're going to have to sell, and we're going to have to downsize, and all of those things, right? Then I get to come through and well, I guess that why you guys were looking to make sure you put this coverage in place to make sure that problem was solved? Yes, that's one way. Or I'm going to ask enough questions until they tell me this, until they say, well, Michael, that's why we're on this appointment today, right? To get that, to put this coverage in place. And they're telling, and once I know I've asked enough questions, I got to that point, I know I can now move on, right? And start talking about the type of policy and price and all those things. But until that, I really haven't solidified anything because they may not see it as a solution. And then the second thing, record, review, role play, you guys. Write that down. Record, review, role play. Right? We all think we sound one way until we actually hear ourselves. Right? Review it, identify the opportunity of growth because we think we have to change everything in the appointment. Really, it's just one thing in the appointment, right? That we have to get better at. And then role play it. Role play it with a sideline. Role play it with your mentor. Role play it with your significant other. I role played so much with Ida, right? When I first got going, like that was she was my running buddy because I would role play with her a lot. Like, hey, I want to run this by you. So those would be the two tips that I'll give as we wrap up.
I love that. Well, thank you guys, both Jill, Michael, ton of stuff for people to get better. My biggest takeaways from this, unsurprisingly, are nothing more than massive action and constant correction. Just do a lot of work to learn where you're weak and go get better at that thing. If you continue that process month in and month out of doing a lot of work and correcting it, you're going to find it doesn't take you a ton of time to prep. You're going to find your closing rate is better. You're going to find you're doing more, accomplishing more, and making more money in less time. Mastering production, you should be able to make 20 grand a month in 30 hours a week. Where else can you go to do that? That's what's sitting for you on the other end of mastering this. And I want to paint that picture because it's freaking worth it. It's worth it. Is it going to be challenging? Yes, but it's worth it. When you get good at this, you can write your meal ticket. You can make whatever money you want to make. You can reverse engineer your ratios, and you can change a lot of lives. It's awesome. All right. Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks, Jim.